Hmm? Yeah. Okay. Well, we are sorry for the technical difficulty, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you the two questions that we dealt with. Okay. And the first question was, do you know what needs to be bound and loosed in the church today? Why? Because when the church, acts in unity according to the process that God has given it for not only church discipline but a disciplined church, there's agreement, one, there is power, two, and there's unity. And this power is to bind, this power is to loose. Okay, and the church needs to learn how to bind and loose. There needs to be a watchman or somebody in the church that says, hey, look, here are some things that are coming. We need to have a watchman that watches way down the street. Okay, that was the first question. So you need to answer that in this third one. Okay, the second question had to do is that when the church of God continues, the church is knitted and held together, or when the word of God continues, that the church is knitted and held together, and the brethren are strengthened and they're encouraged. And they should be, because through discipline, whether the church is being disciplined or a disciplined church, the congregation is together. Secondly, it's encouraged, okay, comforted and built up, it's strengthened, it is made stronger, it has peace in it, and it has tranquility, and it is and reconciliation is brought. So anytime there's church discipline or disciplined church, two things happen. She has power. She has power to bind and loose. Second thing is that if it's done right, guess what happened? The church is together. There's comfort. There's building up. There's made stronger. There's tranquility. There's reconciliation, and there's peace. Now, the second question dealt with this. Okay, is that fruit there today? And if it is, why? And if it's not, why not? So let's answer the two questions, okay? God in Matthew 18 to 20, says that I have given you the power to bind and loose as a church. In Matthew 16, in the 19th verse, Jesus tells Peter, I'm giving you the keys. Now, these keys can do what? They can lock or unlock. They can bind or they can loose. Keys is about power. The church has that power, and church has that authority. And when Christians are not sensitive to that authority or don't want to be submitted to that authority, then she comes off from under the protection of the covering that God has given to the church. At the same time, if it's done right, guess what? People are then brought together, not separate. People are then confident and built up, not tore down. People ought to be stronger, not weaker. And then there should be a tranquility and a reconciliation. And so when we look at church discipline overall, and we begin to look at the Jerusalem Council and saw what they did, this is what happened after the letter in Jerusalem was written. After the letter, was confronting a doctrine, these fruit showed up. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to get you ready for the third question. Okay, we're going to get you ready for the third question. All right. Now, the third question, I want to set this up for you. Okay. The third question comes out of 1 Corinthians 5 and 6. Okay. 1 Corinthians 5 and 6. Now, but we're going to look at chapter 6, verse 7. All right. Now, if discipline, when the word is going forward and the church is acting in the process that God has put up, if church discipline, church accountability, church responsibility, and forgiveness is for the purpose of holiness. I'm going to say it again. If church discipline, accountability, responsibility, and forgiveness is for the purpose of holiness, then we should not self-destruct. Think about it. If discipline is brought and then we self-destruct, is it the right kind of discipline? Because the whole purpose of it is for holiness, is for forgiveness, is for accountability, is for responsibility. Now look at verse 7 in 1 Corinthians 6. It says, actually then, it is already a defeat for you that you have lawsuits with one another. Why not rather be wronged? Why not rather be defrauded? Now think about what Paul is saying here. I'm going to read this to you because I'm going to set this third question up. Now I want to read this to you. Now this is written or spoken from the word of shame on the whole community. Verse 4 and 5. If then you have law courts dealing with matters of this life, do you appoint them as judges who are of no account in the church? I say this to your shame. Is it so that there is not among you one wise man who will be able to decide between his brethren? But brother goes to law with brother, and therefore unbelievers see this? Okay, now think about this. For this word of shame came on the whole community, as Paul spoke about in verse 5 and 6, who has disregarded their own position in Christ by allowing such a thing to happen before the pagan world to see. Paul says, shame on you. Paul turns to the shame, and he turns to the two ones who are going against each other. And then he says, this emphasis is in the Greek, which is nearly impossible to put in what you call good English. Is on the utter defeat that the action represents. The fact that you're doing this is defeat. Okay? Already, whatever the results of the lawsuit, it is altogether a defeat to you, and that you have lawsuits against one another. See, it says when the Christians can't work out their problems on either side, it's a defeat. We don't understand that. We would rather run and go to another place. But what he's saying is, hold on, if we can't work it out, it's self-defeating. It's self-destruction. See, Paul points directly at what you will call, if you will call man B, you will call him the plaintiff. And he's complaining because something happened to him. And Paul is saying whether you win or lose, the action itself is already a loss. For even if you win, you lose by not being able to what? To endure injury. See, when we get injured, we want the payback. Paul said that ain't the way it's supposed to happen in the church. Okay, God will deal with that. And he says, and the church loses by your action before the public tribunal. When the public looks in and says, wait a minute, Christians hurt each other. But what they want to do is get back at each other. They want to make sure that the other person gets what they deserve. Paul is saying it's better just to be injured. Okay? He's saying that. For this, he will proceed to what you would call the rhetorical question, which implies by the ending loss. Okay? because he wants us to know that if one person wins, the other person loses. And I tell that in the marriage council when I tell people about my wife and I. If I win and Vicky lose, we both lose. If she win and I lose, we both lose. So Paul is trying to get at something. So he's not only getting at the plaintiff, but he's also getting at the defendant. Okay? He says, by your wrongdoing, which participated in the lawsuit, you participated in the lawsuit, you too have suffered defeat. For even if you have, okay, gained some temporary advantage, you stand in greater danger of losing your eternal inheritance. Thus, even before a verdict is reached in court, the action itself is an utter defeat to all parties. Think about how we handle problems in the church, ladies and gentlemen. Think about how the world watches us and say, man, they can't even solve their own problems. What makes them think that they can solve the problems of the world? Okay? So the fact that we go against each other, all right, is a defeat. Paul says, shame on you. It is better to be wounded than to wound the whole church. Now, I want you to think about that. I would rather be hurt by this brother than to turn this into something that the whole church could be hurt by. I would rather absorb the blow, okay? Because one of the things you're going to learn about love is that love absorbs the unexpected. Love absorbs the unexpected blow, okay? But now we want to get back at people. That's our soul. We want to get back at people, okay? See, because he's saying whether you win or lose, it's going to be a loss. So whether you're the plaintiff or the defendant, you're losing. Why take it beyond the fact that, you know what, you hurt me. All right, okay, I hurt you, you hurt me. Hey, okay, man, I'm sorry I did that wrong. Let's move on. And taking that hurt and letting it fester and say something's got to be done, something's got to be done, something's got to be done. Now, I want you to understand something. God's going to deal with the fallout. That's not the problem. But why do we go at each other? You're going to see when we do our worship service that, you know, some Jews stirred up some things against these apostles, stirred it up, caused the Gentiles to be bitter towards them. Why do we stir those things up in each other? Okay. Here's the third question. Remember, the first question is that, do you know what needs to be bound and loosed in the church today? Is there a watchman out there that can see something coming way before it happens and say, guys, look, let's deal with this because it's on its way, instead of letting it hit and then we scatter like a whole bunch of frogs? Here's the second question. Is this fruit evident that the church is together, she's encouraged, she's strengthened, and she has peace in the middle of the discipline? And if it's there, why is it? If it's not, why not? Here's the third question. Are we handling the family business right? Are we handling the family business right? See, it's okay to handle it right when things are smooth, but are we handling it when it's not smooth? Can we do family business the way it's supposed to be done? Can we lock the doors? Can we get in each other's face? Can we look for reconciliation? Can we help each other out? Can we not run but stay in there? Okay? Because I want you to know this fact that I learned from James Dobson. James Dobson said, those who have hurt each other in marriage, regardless of what has happened, whether that's been infidelity or whatever, those people who have gotten through it and stayed together through the mucky muck, at the backside of their marriage say they are more happy than they've ever been. More happy. Those who run and go get something else seems to be still discouraged and hurt and in pain. That is a statistic that has just come out of the James Dobson camp in the last 2 months. You ought to call them and see. You ought to call them and see. Okay? Because people hang in there. They just hang in there. They hang in there. So here's the third question. Are we handling the family business right? I'm going to give you 6 minutes. Go ahead. Got 2 minutes left, so I got a little time. A lot of times you just don't know. So there's, like I said, there's no need to react. Hmm? I just wanted you to know what the time was going to be. so we can go on and start. All right. Okay. So, how do we take this last 7 or 8 minutes and wrap this up? Because we'll have one more session next Sunday, and then our Sunday school format will change. But I'll be giving that information out at the announcement time at our worship service today that starts at 10:30. Okay. Now, how do you wrap this up? Okay. Well, first of all, the ecclesia has power that she's not using. The most powerful institution on earth is the church. God has established her. That's why he said the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. Notice that. He did not say that about anything else. He didn't say that about the government. He didn't say that about the business. Okay? He didn't say that about media and entertainment. He didn't even say that about the family. He said that about the ecclesia, the church, the body. She's got power. Now, the question is, if her power is being hindered, you must find out why. Because she has this ability to bind and loose. Not just an individual, but the church does, because this binding and loosing comes off of discipline. If you go to Matthew 18 and you read it, you will see that the binding and loosing has a lot to do with being disciplined. So in Matthew 18, that's one of the things you're going to find is that, wait a minute, the church got all this power, but she is using it. She is using it for the wrong reason. Okay? So that's the first thing we can draw a conclusion to as I take my time to get to those particular scriptures. Okay? Think about this. In the kingdom, we have rank. We humble ourselves. But stumbling blocks come. And when those stumbling blocks come, those of us who stumble can rest assured that the good shepherd is going to come looking for us to bring us back. And then there's a discipline there, and there's also a prayer there. So when you look at verse 18, it says, truly I say to you, whatever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you shall loose on earth shall be loosened in heaven. The binding and loosing is in heaven. Whatever is bound in heaven is going to be bound on earth. Whatever is loosed in heaven is going to be bound on earth. Why? And the church has access to that. And then there's forgiveness. See, the forgiveness part goes all the way into verse 21, all the way to verse 35. We'll be talking about that next week. Is there truly, really forgiveness? Because you can tell when something has been forgiven. There's a fruit of forgiveness. Okay? All right? Then here's the second thing that we can see. If you go quickly to Acts 15, you can see that there are ingredients to prove that when this discipline is done right, once, people stay together. 2, they rejoice and are encouraged. 3, that they are strengthened. 4, peace comes when it's all done right. Those ingredients should be there. So not only is that power, but that power is there to bring about encouragement, togetherness, strength, and peace. All in the area of church discipline and a disciplined church. And then here's the third and final thing, okay? When we don't do it, it's a defeat on either side. I mean, Paul is saying something here that really baffles me. But at the same time, I understand. What he's saying is, why give the devil an opportunity? Why? You know, and I would tell people in marriage counseling, you know, okay, just because you love each other is no guarantee that your marriage is going to be successful. But love is the basis by which your success begins. Say, you have to, then the second thing I tell them is that you got to look for the win-win scenario. Why? Simply because if one person wins, the other person loses. And here's the third thing is that you can't demand or get all the attention. I tell people that all the time. That marriage can't be built around you. It's got to be built around both people, you know. And you become an energy vampire when you think all of it points towards you. See, this is what Paul is saying here in this last part when he said it's better to be wronged. Okay, it's better to take the slap than the whole thing to have a big slap and be destroyed. See, it's better that way. And I would you know, my wife would give in sometimes to me. I would give in sometimes to her for the whole purpose that we don't want the devil to win. We forget about what he does, but we're so good at trying to get back at somebody. We don't see that behind that is your soul wanting to be king. Is your mind, will, and emotions wanting to be big time. Instead of eating from the tree of life, we wind up eating from the tree of knowledge and good and evil. Go back and check out what happened in the garden and see if that stuff is not happening right now. So here's our conclusion as we kind of put a bookend on some of this church discipline stuff starting next week. And I'll tell you during our worship service that we're going to be streaming as a pilot attempt next Sunday, not from my home, but we'll be streaming from church. Now, I will affirm that to you throughout the week. That's our goal. That's our hope, that we'll just do a trial run. But in the meantime, okay, in any relationship, okay, in any relationship, whether it's family, whether it's marriage, whether it's church, whether it's business, 3 imperatives must be a consistent work: communication, value systems, and conflict resolution. How you handle conflict will determine the success of your family, your marriage, your church, and your business. How you handle conflict. God bless you. Look forward to seeing you next week as we continue in church discipline and the disciplined church. Thank you so much. God bless you.